Hey everybody, welcome back to Hopeful Hump Day. Today we have a very hot topic for you, homeschooling. We know there are a lot of you out there that are probably considering this right now as we're moving into the upcoming school year, and you're probably feeling a bit of stress and pressure around what decision to make. So today we are joined by an experienced homeschooling mom that is going to share some of her experiences and some resources that can help you in determining whether or not this is something that you would like to do for this year and hopefully make it a little bit of a less stressful process for you. So Debbie Kuski is a wife and mom of two, and she's been homeschooling her children for 6 years. But she didn't originally want to homeschool. You may be able to, relate to that if you're feeling that way. She felt that fear and that uncertainty of taking that plunge. But today she loves it. And she's using her experiences to help other parents navigate the uncertainty and the unknowns around homeschooling. So, welcome, Debbie. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking about this very timely topic.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I love talking about homeschooling.
Awesome. We like that too.
Yeah, so Debbie, being a mother of three, only two which are in school, but with everything that's been going on, I was definitely excited to talk to you because I know parents are feeling really overwhelmed with a lot of people feeling like this role is being forced upon them. Like even if you're not, I feel like even if you're not homeschooling and you're doing the distance learning, I don't know the difference because I haven't done both, but it felt like homeschooling, right? Like it felt like I was on my own. Like, yeah, they were sending me stuff, but like I don't know. I didn't feel confident in my ability to, I guess, teach it and stuff. So I definitely am excited to hear from you. And yeah, as Stephanie mentioned, like you weren't gung ho about it at first. So do you want to share with us a little bit of like how you even got into it?
Yeah. So I was a school teacher. Actually, I taught elementary school for 7 years. And then I had my son and I quit when I had him. But before that, I was carpooling with a friend of mine. She came and dropped my son off one day at my house and said, "Hey, you should homeschool with me next year." And I was like, no, never going to happen. I have zero interest in homeschooling. Next year, my daughter's going to school. I will have 6.5 glorious hours without children in my house. I will never homeschool. Never say never. So ever since she said that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like, it was torturing me because I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then as the school year came to an end and it was getting near time, we had summer and it was getting near time for me to decide to sign my daughter up for kindergarten. I just didn't feel right about it. I was like, oh my gosh, what did she do to me? Like, I can't send them to school. And so I was having this turmoil for weeks. And finally, I just prayed about it. I'm like, God, just tell me what to do. I just need peace either way. I don't care what it is. Even though I don't want to homeschool, I'll do whatever you tell me. So I did not have peace about sending them to school. So I was like, all right, we're homeschooling. We're going to do it. And we did.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so as like just to be honest, like I'm not a teacher, right? And you are. So like for me, I'm like, well, she's a teacher, so that makes sense, and I'm just being honest. So like what I'm curious is kind of like, how did you, I guess, figure out how to do it? Or was that something like, did you have to do a lot of research, or like, how would somebody like me who like feels completely lost? Because I feel like maybe you had a slight advantage because you were used to.
no.
I know it's different when it's not your kids, right?
Yeah.
But like just I guess knowing how to explain things and stuff like that. So where did you go from there? Like how did you figure out how to do it? And maybe like what advice do you have for like someone like me that I feel like I have no idea?
So the first thing I would say is a common misconception is that because you've been a teacher, that it's easier for you or you know what you're doing. I feel like my teaching degree worked against me for homeschooling. I feel like I had to unlearn everything that I learned about teaching in public school because homeschooling is so completely different that it worked against me because in my head it was, okay, I'm bringing public school home and I'm doing the exact same thing that I did in school, but I'm just doing it at home. But I didn't have a classroom filled with 30 kids. I didn't have to teach to the test. I didn't have to do all those same things. So I had to really retrain myself. And this came after years of figuring this out. So what I did first, excuse me, what I did first is I just Googled the heck out of everything. I just went into research mode. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just searched every topic on homeschooling. I bought books on homeschooling. And what I found was there's so many different resources out there and they all tell you different things. It's really hard to find one thing that's like, this is exactly how you do it, because every family is different. Every kid is different. Every parent is different. So I found that after I Googled everything, my best thing for me to do, I'm a very social person and I like to do life with others. So I found a homeschool group. And what really helped me was talking to other homeschool parents who have done it. Because even though you're going to get a bunch of different answers, when you find an answer that you're like, oh, that works for me, you can dig deeper and find out more about what they're doing and see how that fits into your life. So I would say Googling is a good thing, but again, it can get you confused and overwhelmed. So I think finding somebody who's done it is a really good start, or several people who've done it, because again, you're going to get different perspectives depending on who you speak to.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And like, I love the fact that you mentioned, once you find something you think might work, now you have a resource to start exploring that further versus, now you'd have to start your Google search again.
Yeah.
But thank goodness for Google, right? We're glad Google exists.
Yeah, it's easier when you have a path.
Yes. So now that you've been doing it for 6 years, what do you think about it?
I absolutely love it. I can't even imagine ever sending my kids back to school. I just can't. I picture it some days. There's those days when you're like, I want to strangle my children. And I'm like, that yellow school bus looks really nice. Can I just send you that way, please? But when I actually think about actually putting them back in school, I'm like, I can't even imagine ever doing it, because we just love the lifestyle so much. And it's a lifestyle. It's not just something that you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And I know right now with the craziness that's going on, some people might just be doing this for a year, and that's okay. You do what's best for you and your kids. But if you do choose it as, something that you're planning on doing and continuing doing, it is a lifestyle, and it changes your life completely, because it's just so different. You're not stuck with schedules. You're not stuck with, it's really freedom. I mean, you have so much freedom when you homeschool that it's amazing. I absolutely love it. We've done so many fun things that we never would have been able to do otherwise.
I think, and I don't have kids, right? So I'm totally coming at this from completely different perspective, but I would imagine that maybe some people, when they hear you say freedom, they're probably thinking, what? Because they're probably thinking the exact opposite. Yeah. So how do you get freedom when you're homeschooling? What does that look like?
Yeah, I know. It does sound crazy, right? It's like completely the opposite of what you think. But the freedom doesn't come in like having alone time. It really doesn't. Go, goodbye. Sorry, child.
Speaking up.
There they are. The freedom doesn't come in having alone time. The freedom comes in scheduling. The freedom comes in, hold on. Kyla, please. Sorry, she's running water now, so you can't hear me. It comes in the scheduling where you're not rushing to get up in the morning. You're not rushing to get ready for dinner because you got to eat it early because whatever, because they have to do homework and then they have to do sports and then they have to do this and that. It's freedom to vacation whenever you want to. We vacation when usually October and like January or February. It's when it's the cheapest and the least crowded. So you can go and do things whenever your schedule allows it. And you don't even have to really have a schedule. You can. But again, it's your choice. It's not something that you have to follow a school calendar and something that you have to do. So yeah, the alone time part, you don't get that as much. But for me, I do. I make it a priority. My husband realizes it's a priority for me because otherwise, if I'm not happy, nobody's happy. So he knows I need my alone time. And if I don't get it, nobody likes me and nobody is going to be happy. So we just
it's good for everyone for you to have your alone time.
Yeah. So we just make it a priority. You just got to, you find out what's important to you and make it happen. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's so just applicable in general, right? I think a lot of times we don't necessarily plan for having that alone time or that time for ourselves. Yeah. And so it's really great to hear that, you have to make it a priority. It's an intentional decision, but it can be done. But I'm interested to know more too about some of the other misconceptions that may be out there about homeschooling. What are some of the common ones you hear?
There's a lot. So let's talk socialization, because that's probably the first one. Now there's different situations. There are some situations, like if a parent's working at home, that you're not going to have that much time to really socialize. But in some homeschool situations, a lot of times there's a parent that's home with the child or children most of the day, right? So the kids are only as socialized as you're going to help them to be. If you decide you're staying home and not giving them those opportunities, yeah, they're going to be unsocialized. But for the most part, a lot of the kids and the parents just want to get out and talk to other people. So for us, we found a homeschool group. And then that homeschool group, we ended up leaving that homeschool group and we ended up starting a new one. So I started a field trip group because I love planning. That's my favorite thing to do. I love to plan and organize things. So I started a field trip group 5 years ago, and I just planned field trips for people, and people would sign up online, and that's how we made a ton of friends. And then I also started with some friends, like I think there was 5 of us. We started a faith-based nonprofit homeschool support group. So right now we have, last semester before COVID messed everything up, we had 42 moms and like 95 kids in our group. So I mean, there's opportunities out there. We do park days, we do field trips, we do meetings, we do moms night outs, we do different events together, pool days. You just have to, if you want your kids to be socialized, you just have to seek out the opportunities, and they're there. And if they're not there, make them. Right. That's what I did when we first started. I was like, you know what? There's not a lot of field trips being planned. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make them. And
that's awesome.
To the people. So socialization is one big one. The other probably biggest misconception about homeschooling is that you have to do it just like public school. And I think I mentioned this already. It does not have to look like public school. It doesn't. You don't have to sit down at 8 o'clock and be done at 2:30. In fact, my son does his schoolwork, like actual book work, usually at 10 o'clock at night. He'll do it from like 10 to 11:30 because he doesn't want to have to do it the next day. So he'll just stay up and do it. And I'm okay.
And how old is your son again?
How old is your son?
14. Okay.
He's 14 and my daughter's 11. But it only takes them a fraction of the time that it takes in public school. Think about public school. They're walking to and from class. They're switching subjects. They're switching books. The teacher's teaching, and then they're doing an assignment, and you're waiting for every kid. So if your kid's done, your kid's waiting 20 minutes for all the other kids to finish. You don't have that at home. You can move on when they're ready. If they're not ready and they need that extra support, you take the time and give them the extra support. So it's really flexible in that respect. So kids can finish their stuff early. Like my son's technically going into 9th grade. He's almost halfway done most of his 9th grade stuff, but he's still in 8th grade for one subject because that one's taking him a little bit longer. And we can do that because of the flexibility. Same with my daughter. She's going into 6th, but she's doing some 4th stuff because there's stuff that she struggles in, and some 5th and some 6th stuff. So you can really meet the kids where they are and really tailor it to their needs and to yours, because the parent's important too.
I mean, that's so awesome to hear. Because again, I would not have thought about these things. I would have been like, oh, it has to look just like school. You're in 4th grade, you do 4th grade work. But yeah, every kid's different. You know, some are more advanced in some subjects than others. So yeah, that's great to hear that you can have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And I think I may have read on your page, and I know you're going to talk about it a little bit later because you set up a Facebook group around this, but I think maybe I read it on there somewhere about, like, if you don't want to get up first thing, like you have a late night, if you don't have to get up first thing in the morning, early morning to start school, you don't have to.
No.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I stay up till like 2 or 3 almost every morning because speaking of a long time, right? Not my favorite time of the day, but one of my favorite parts of the day is when my kids are in bed. Now that they're older, that's getting later and later. So my bedtime's getting later and later because I enjoy that time where nobody's awake and nobody needs anything from me. So I will sit there and I'll binge watch a Netflix show till 3 a.m. because it's my alone time, you know? And then I'll sleep till 9:30 or 10 because my kids are older. They get up before me usually, and they know what to do. We have a routine. They know they have to eat, feed the pets, and then get their schoolwork started. So sometimes they're done before I'm even awake because they're independent enough. Now, when you have younger kids, it's harder to do that. But same thing with sports. Like, sports is so much easier when you homeschool because, like, my son plays baseball. I don't have to worry about a late game because he doesn't have to get up early the next morning. He can sleep in if there's a late game, or a lot of times there'll be a lot of late nights in a row and I can tell his body just needs to sleep. He'll sleep till 11. Now that's not typical, but if he's sleeping till 11, his body needs it, and I can let him have that time because we don't have to rush anywhere. Although now, because we can't really go anywhere, but before we used to be going to field trips a lot more and things like that, where we would have to get up at a certain time. But even my field trips, I plan them later.
Well, yeah.
At 8 a.m. I can tell you that.
Some people are morning people. I'm not.
Yeah,
Lydia, I think you're a little bit more of a morning person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even not even a little.
So I think just the examples that you've shared so far, I think a lot of positivity around this. And so I don't know, Lydia, I want to ask you, like, kind of hearing how Debbie is describing this, as a mom, what stands, I know, like, you didn't think you were going to be interviewed today, but I'm going to ask you a question. What stands out to you as a mom as like, whoa, aha, or that sounds amazing, or still not sure?
Yeah, no, definitely the flexibility is a huge bonus, I think. And I think a lot of people, like, coming into all this COVID stuff, it's like at first we were all like, oh my God, like this is so terrible. But then slowly, like, at least I can speak for myself, slowly I was like, wow, this is nice, like not having to be at school early in the morning and just, whipping out the computer and the distance learning, like when I'm ready. And then, like, another thing I think you mentioned last time we talked, but not this time, was that, like, you don't have to have summer break. Like, so you can do school, like, all year round. So that, like, stuck out to me, too, because it's like, yeah, why cram so much if you don't have to? Maybe just do, like, a little bit every day. And then also what you said about, like, how on different subjects they can be in different grade levels. Like, I think that's pretty cool because, like, yeah, you can't do that, obviously, or, like, not as easily in traditional school. But actually, I have a question that's kind of, we talked about it a little bit last time we talked, but just for myself, I'm curious about, like, because I know you mentioned before something about, like, learning styles of your kids. And so, like, is there anything that I could do or our listeners could do to, like, learn that about their kids?
Yeah, so in talking about learning styles, when you think about public school, everybody is learning for the most part the same way, right? And all kids are different. So it's really hard. And I loved public school. Don't even get me wrong. I am not bashing public school at all. I absolutely loved it. I would go back if I could, because I am a worksheet test kind of girl. Like, that makes me happy. And there's kids that are totally function really well with that. My kids don't. My kids are creative. They don't do well with testing. They don't do well with, like, sit down worksheet, stuff like that. They need more creative outlets and things like that. So I can do that with homeschooling. So in finding learning styles, really, there's all the kids learn differently. Some of them may learn better by seeing things, like visual learners. My daughter, if she sees something on TV, she remembers it. So, like, when she's watching TV, she's learning a lot. She tells me these random facts. I'm like, where'd you hear that? She's like, oh, on Project MC Squared or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever, if you're learning, But then there's kids that hear or learn better by hearing. There's kids that learn better by doing. So you really need to find out how your kids learn the best and really tailor their education or their learning to them. There's also different teaching styles. Like, when you're going to teach your kids, there's so many, and it's really hard to go into all of them right now. So I've made actually a document that is really a homeschool how-to. So I think it's 28 pages right now. It was 25. I think I've added more. But it's really showing you step-by-step how to do this. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I think I want to homeschool, but I don't even know where to start, you can go onto a million different Facebook pages, ask a bunch of different questions, and get 47,000 answers from different people. But nobody's going to tell you. It's really hard to find, like, here's step-by-step what you want to do. So that's what I created, because I really wanted to help parents. I feel like it's just such an overwhelming thing at first. I really wanted to help them, like, here's a step-by-step. Let me make this easier for you on how to go about doing this. So I talked a lot about mindset is the first thing, getting out of the public school mindset. Then we talk about learning styles, kinesthetic, auditory, visual. We talk about teaching styles. There's a bunch of different teaching styles. And you can look at that and read about them and figure out, oh, like, this one sounds like would be great for our family. And then you can research that style instead of looking at a bunch of different things. You're narrowing it down so you're not as overwhelmed and stressed out. We talk about scheduling. I talk about, I don't even know, there's a lot in there. I just thinking all the questions that new homeschool parents would have and how you can get them, like, really set up on in an organized way, because that's what I like to do. I like to organize everything in an organized way so you're not completely overwhelmed and stressed out. So that's
So
my,
how can I find this document?
oh yeah.
She needs it now.
So I put it all on Member Vault. So if you go to, it's E3, the letter E, the number 3, homeschoollife.vip membervault.com. And we can link that later on because that's kind of hard. So e3homeschoollife.vip membervault.com. I have that on there. And I also have a bunch of, a couple, not a bunch, I don't want to say a ton because I've just started this, more free resources on there. Like I have a free resource talking about how chores can be done. Because that's part of your homeschool life too. You know, it's your lifestyle, fitting your chores in there, how you can work yourself out of a job. Because I plan on, by the time both my kids are in high school, I shouldn't be doing a lot of cleaning around my house. They need to know what they're doing. So when they move out, like their wife or husband is like, thank you.
Yes.
You know?
I like that.
That's my goal. So I have other stuff on there too. There's a couple free things on there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll definitely put that in the comments, the links.
And then also real quick, sorry, I have my page too, which is just a free business page. I just post different, hopefully helpful things on there for homeschool parents. And the more stuff that I do, the more I'll post on there. It's just E3 Homeschool Life. You can just search for that on Facebook if you want to go there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put the Facebook link and then the Member Vault, the link where all the resources, the fantastic resources are. We'll put those in the comments as soon as we get done with the show so people can access them. But I mean, it sounds like, to me, it sounds wonderful because like you said, anyone could go out and Google everything, but then how do you narrow down? And so you've done that work for them. And it sounds like giving them some guidelines to help them make some decisions, which I think that's what people would be helpful right now, you know. And some people may decide, yeah, no, it's not for me. But others, I mean, hopefully by hearing your story and looking at some of these resources, they may decide, wow, this is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. This could actually be pretty awesome. And so I think that's what's maybe people are looking for right now, is just some of those resources to help them make that decision.
Yeah, and the main thing is like people are so afraid they're going to mess up their kids. You're not. Like your kids are going to learn whether you help them learn or not, because kids are naturally curious people. They want to know about the world around them. So they seek those things out, whether you force it on them or help them or not. You know, you're not going to mess up your kid.
Yeah.
If you love your kid enough to say, I'm going to homeschool them, then you have what it takes. Yeah. You can do it.
And remind us, what's the 3 E's? What is 3 E's?
The 3 E's, not right now. Sorry. 3 E's, the cute child coming in and interrupting. Welcome to my world. Is encourage, because let me tell you the 3 E's first. Encourage, empower, and educate. I want to encourage the parents, empower them so that they know that they can do it, educate them in the best ways to do it. So in turn, they can encourage their kids, empower their kids to take control of their learning, and educate them, you know, so that they learn the things that they want to know.
Awesome. All right, so one last thing, take over our job for the day. Give us the insight and mindfulness question for today.
Okay, so our insight, I have to read it because I did not memorize it, but I did write it down. So taking the first step is the hardest, but remembering why you chose it keeps you going. Okay, always remember your why. And then the question is, how can you keep your focus on your why? To me, that's one of the most important things, is just remembering why you're doing it. If you remember why you chose it in the first place, then you're going to keep going. If you forget why you did it, then you're probably going to end up giving up at some point.
Yeah. I think that's so applicable with anything, right? Anytime we can remember why we started doing something, especially when it gets hard, it helps us to keep going. So, well, thank you so much, Debbie. This has been really, really informational. I think encouraging and inspiring. I think if I had kids, I'd definitely be considering homeschooling them. But I don't.
Come homeschool mine.
I have a new job.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. And again, we'll put those links in the chat. So as soon as we get off of here, and just for those listening, you know, check out the Facebook page, check out those resources. I'm sure they can contact you, Debbie, through that page as well if they have questions.
Yeah.
If they need some additional coaching or just some help, you know, figuring out some things, you are there to support them. So appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yes. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week for another episode of Hopeful Hump Day. Bye.